Hey guys, I'm back with my Oscar catch-up series, talking about Secret Agent starring Wagner Moura. Directed by, unfortunately I'm not able to pronounce his name. I don't speak Portuguese, so forgive me for not being able to pronounce it. I know the Oscars have been past us already, but I still feel like I owe it to you guys and to myself to complete the series. The plot of Secret Agent is about this man named Armando, or Marcelo as he goes by with his alias, who's caught in the middle of a political turmoil and is attempting to flee the country of Brazil and resisting the authoritarian regime in the country. And during his cover job, he goes through some various records to find out some things about his mother, keeping his child safe, and avoiding detection from certain people who he doesn't want to get spotted by. To get right to the point, and I don't know if I have a whole ton to add to this one, but I figured since it's the Oscar catch-up series once again, I figured I'd give you guys my thoughts. I guarantee you somebody's going to say, you didn't put any effort into this, why are you even bothering to put a review up? Again, I feel like I owe it to you guys to give you something to talk about at least, just to kind of keep the channel humming along, if you know what I mean, so that way I can get to really what I want to talk about. But to sum it up, I thought Secret Agent was perfectly fine. Nothing amazing, but nothing terrible either. I do like the story that it's trying to tell, and interestingly enough, not to get too political, but it is kind of relevant for what's going on right now in the United States and in other countries around the world. Now, this is not the kind of movie where the tension is mostly sky high throughout the entire runtime, mostly, if anything. It goes through the mundane routines that everybody goes through in their day-to-day lives. There is the authoritarian threat that's looming in the background, but it's not so hammered in your face to the point where you're always wondering what's going to happen, what's going to happen. The biggest problem for me, though, is the pacing. I think a lot of times it's overlong and it just kind of chugs along, not really getting anywhere. Now, I understand it's the everyday routine. It's not going to be like Mission Impossible or a World War II movie of some kind. I'm using those as examples to illustrate my point because we don't really have many movies out there, at least in American cinema, talking about other dictatorships outside of the Nazis. Well, at least not to my knowledge anyway. This is kind of like along the lines of Andor, which I am in the middle of. I'm going to complete the second season at some point. I know some of you guys are hoping for me to finish it. Trust me guys, I'm getting there. I'm saying the storytelling feels very similar. That being said, the pacing I think is what really drags the movie down. This is a 2.5-hour runtime. I think it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. And a lot of times I felt like it was really getting stretched too thin, to the point where I was kind of fading out, not really getting invested in what was happening. There were certain moments where I was starting to get my interest piqued, but there was one moment that really threw me off. And I think that was the intention, that it was some sort of urban legend that was going around in Brazil at the time. This is the late 1970s, and it was in an area where men, particularly gay men, were having romantic moments together, and they were getting beatings from the local cops. I get the intention that it was going for, but tonally, it just felt so out of place. Wagner Moura, I think, gives a perfectly fine performance. Outside of this one, I've only seen him in Civil War, not Captain America Civil War, the Civil War movie from 2 years ago with Kirsten Dunst. Oddly enough, both of these movies involve him dealing with an authoritarian dictatorship of some kind. He actually did an interview not that long ago with Crooked Media talking about what motivated him to do this movie. For anyone who's done any research on him, which I have, he's very outspoken about where he stands politically, particularly with immigration policies and foreign affairs. I do respect him for feeling motivated to make something like this. Besides Wagner Moura, the only person I recognized was Udo Kier. I'm not sure how to say his name. He's a German actor who I recognize from the movie Armageddon. If you remember the sequence where they're all sitting in the psychiatrist's office and the guy asks, who's Jethro Tull? That's the same guy who asked that question. And his character is a World War II veteran, a German soldier who was fleeing prosecution for his war crimes during the Holocaust. I might be getting some of the details wrong on that, but that's basically how I remember it. And that's how it really was in real life. A lot of German soldiers or former military fled the country, whether it was due to being prosecuted for their war crimes against the Jews, or they just deserted the German army completely and they can't go back to their home because then they'll be put on trial for being a deserter. I don't recognize any of the other people in this movie. I think there are a lot of foreign actors like Portuguese or Brazilian actresses or actors, but I also think that's kind of the movie's benefit because they're just average everyday people, or at least that's how they feel throughout this movie. It focuses on the people and how they're all living under this authoritarian regime. And there's a lot of talking scenes involved too, which is not bad. You can have a compelling narrative in a movie or television show like this. I just think for me, the pacing really drags us out. There's also a neat little subplot about Wagner Moira's character's son who wants to see the movie Jaws, but he's like 6 or 7 years old. This is the late 1970s. He's obviously way too young to see a movie like this. But to see them talking about movies like Jaws or The Shining, I think it was The Shining, or any other American film that was popular during that time, as a film buff / pop culture guy, that did a lot for me. And in case you guys haven't seen it, I'm gonna have to put in this mild spoiler warning, but Armando's son grows up to be a doctor working in this blood donor clinic, and he tells this young woman who's doing research on his father how he first watched the movie Jaws, and a bunch of other stuff too involving his father and his mother. And Wagner Moura also plays the son. When he walks out from his office, I thought, wait, what? Right. Okay. It's his son. Yeah, I don't really know what else to add to The Secret Agent. It's a perfectly harmless political thriller, and some of the historical context that he uses as a backdrop, I think does work solidly in the movie's favor. It's just the pacing, like I've said already, really drags the movie down. If anything, you got Wagner Moira, and he is, I guess, somewhat of a box office draw for cinephiles. And this is my second time seeing him in something. I really like what this guy can do. If any one of you have recommendations for me as far as his other work, just let me know in the comments down below. So that's all I have for you guys on Secret Agent. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in this movie if you've seen it. If you'd like to see more from me, just hit the like and subscribe buttons. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.